Good morning and welcome back to World Talks. The humanitarian aid provided to Ukraine since the onset of the Russian invasion in February of 2022 has been substantial. However, delivering it to the so-called red zones, newly liberated areas behind the front lines, is extremely difficult. To shed more light on the process, I am joined here this morning by Tenby Powell, founder of the KIWI, joining me right now. KIWI K.A.R.E, right?
Hello, Sally. Good morning. Thanks very much for having me here.
Delighted to have you with us. So please explain to me, how does the process look like? How do you get into these areas? I've been to Ukraine myself. I know it's tough. You have to go through a lot of checkpoints. So how do you do that?
Well, we've been operating since May 2022 in the red zones. And I guess we've just got used to, getting through the block posts and making sure we've got the right documentation, the right certifications for the humanitarian and medical aid that we carry, and making sure that we know exactly where we're going to go, which is key to putting the aid directly into the hands of those that need it.
Okay, so and sort of what do you see typically when you get to these areas? Because sometimes people tend to leave these areas, right? So aren't they deserted, so to speak?
Yeah, well, and indeed we help facilitate those evacuations often. So, Sally, look, we've got a number of programs. We take humanitarian and medical aid forward. We do evacuations rearward, and often with elderly people to hospitals in the rear, places like Dnipro, Kharkiv, and even back to Kiev on occasions if they need particular specialist medical help. We have a road, what we call a Road of Life program, where we are going to run 4 ambulances of our own, and they will provide medical and health services into the red zone areas, bearing in mind that some people haven't seen a health professional for years in some cases, and also evacuation services. And we also provide, we've got a manufacturing plant in Kiev, and we take wood-burning stoves and water heaters forward for those that have got absolutely no power or water because of the amount of destruction that's happened with targeting Ukrainian infrastructure.
Oh, this is very interesting. But what about these people who don't want to leave? I remember I was in Petropavlivka once, and there was this lady, Maria, and she completely refused to leave. Yeah. She said, my kids live in Kharkiv, but I'm staying here despite the constant bombing, right? So it's...
Yeah. And look, we face that all the time. And certainly we can't force and would never force anyone to leave against their will. It's not about that. But the situation is changing, it's very dynamic, and the front line is ebbing and flowing in a couple of areas particularly, and there are some places where people may have wanted to have stayed, which are now, really, it's impossible to remain there. It's just too dangerous. And the facilities are so destroyed that there's, again, no running water, no access to power, and of course with the impending winter, it makes it very hard to remain in those places. But it's home, right? So I know what you're saying, this is their home.
Right, some people are just sort of very insistent on the idea of staying. But it is also very risky for you. So how do you protect your volunteers?
Well, we make sure that we have an understanding of what's happening as much as possible. We don't take undue risk. We go to areas where we know we can make an impactful difference on the people that we reach out and touch, but we don't go to areas where we're unequipped to be in. So that's the best way to protect ourselves.
Okay, and so your work started, you said, in May of 2022. So how did your organization came about, or did you do relief work earlier?
No, I've got both a military and a business background at senior level in both cases. But look, like many people, millions around the world, we sat watching the television in February 2022, aghast at what was happening as 40,000 Russian troops rolled across the Belarus border with an idea of capturing Kiev within 3 days. And I just felt that I couldn't sit back and look at what had the potential to be a change of world order. And I still maintain that today, that I believe this war has the potential to change world order. And we're seeing alliances between, for example, Russia and North Korea and Iran. These are very unusual alliances forming. And of course the economic impact on the world has been profound. Supply chains have been severed and they may never be re-established in quite that way again. So this whole change of world order we're starting to see the impact of it right now as the longer this war goes on.
Right, but there are not many organizations like yours, right? Organizations like yours that provide relief in these particularly sensitive, difficult areas like red zones, or are there?
Oh, there are, Sally. I mean, we're not the only ones by any means. We are, ones that put aid, medical aid or humanitarian aid directly into the hands of those that need it. So we work with, government officials and on some cases the military who give us escorts into areas where, we need to go through block posts at such a level that we do need a military escort. And sometimes they will reach out to us and say, look, there's a town or a village here that we can't support. Can you come and help us do some stuff? And we'll support it in that way too.
So the cooperation with the government is crucial, as you...
Critically important.
Right. So, I mean, what makes me wonder is, are some of the differences between the war in Ukraine and what has been going on in Gaza? Because the situation there for humanitarian aid organizations is extremely difficult. The death rate among volunteers in Gaza has been the highest. So my question is, why is it so different? And were you considering operating in other regions of the world as well?
Yeah, so a long time ago, I was a deputy commander in South Lebanon, and we operated amongst the Hezbollah then. And I would love to think that we could take KIWI K.A.R.E to Beirut, where there's a real need right now. Gaza is very different. It's impossible to get in without the Israelis giving permission to get in. And to your point exactly, the level of destruction in Gaza and the targeting of anyone in any position to get to Hamas has been, I think, a revelation to everyone. We wouldn't be able to operate in Gaza. There's been, as you say, many deaths of humanitarian aid workers, but I am seriously thinking that if we can get the resources, we would certainly do what we could to help in Beirut if there was an option to do that.
Definitely. Well, let's hope that perhaps the situation, I mean, they will find some maybe the ceasefire option will be back on the table. I mean, at the moment, right, it's extremely difficult, but I mean, there were talks, so let's remain hopeful. I do have a lot of friends in Lebanon as well, so,
right.
So that's why I'm saying this. Okay, so what are some of the things on your to-do list yet in Ukraine?
Well, we've just, and might sound a bit strange, but we've just had a very senior official past official of New Zealand Rugby, and we've met with the board of Ukrainian Rugby. Now, you may not know it, but Eastern European teams play in European World Rugby Cups, and there's three main divisions. There's the Championship Cup, there's a Trophy Cup, and there's a Conference Cup. Now, and Georgia won the championship this year. Sadly, Poland were relegated from the championship to the Trophy Cup, and equally sadly, Ukraine were relegated from the Trophy to the Conference. So we've got really three goals that we're going to take back to the New Zealand government and to New Zealand Rugby to say, we can help, we believe, in these three ways. One is to get the Ukraine First 15 or the 15 team back into that level of the Conference Cup, to start a development program with under 20s and under 18s because they're the future of the sport, and I think really importantly to work with both the men's and the women's 7-a-side rugby team to get to the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. So we've got this plan that we're working with the board of Ukrainian Rugby to try and facilitate this to help them. And this is a future focus, Sally, trying to say, look, we know there's a war going on, but we are still playing rugby, and sport has always been very important during combat. It's just part of life. And we're looking past the war saying, if we can do this work now, we can really help the Ukrainian team for the future from New Zealand.
Right, especially for younger kids, right? It must be very important just to see that there is life beyond war, and there's something to do. There will be something to do in the future.
And sport can often facilitate that, whether it's soccer, football, or hockey, or any of these sports. I mean, the Ukrainians have got an incredible volleyball team, women's volleyball team. They are amazing, and it's really important to keep that level of energy around sport going.
Absolutely. So, and tell me about New Zealand a little. I mean, what is the public awareness of what's going on in Ukraine? Are people even interested? Because it's the other side of the world.
It is, indeed. People are interested. I mean, we have a real interest in world affairs generally, and possibly because we are on the other side of the world. But also, New Zealanders, Kiwis, as we call ourselves, after the bird, not the fruit, we're prolific travellers. So you'll find a New Zealander anywhere in the world at any time. So we have this sort of global interest in world affairs. But I can say, look, from a fundraising perspective, and funding is the lifeblood of humanitarian aid, it keeps the wheels rolling. I've just had the most incredible support from New Zealanders who are desperately concerned about Ukrainians. And like you, many New Zealanders have got ties to the Middle East as well, and they would be really worried about family and friends that they've met in places like Lebanon and even in Israel and Gaza.
Right, that's for sure. What about Polish people, though? Are they supporting your organisation?
Oh, absolutely. I've made many friends here. There's a number of New Zealanders here and in Warsaw, but I've made many Polish friends who have been just given me the most incredible support in so many ways, and including some very large Polish organisations who have, for example, helped with the insurance of the ambulances that we bought from New Zealand and Australia. We bought 23 so far from the other side of the world, and we're about to bring another 10. And we've got support from companies that will help with insurance across, as we're driving them through Europe. So that's just incredible support.
So just to round up our talk, if someone wanted to help, what can they do to help your organisation in particular? Well,
as I said, funding is everything. It keeps the wheels of humanitarian aid rolling. We have a website. It's KIWI K.A.R.E Ukraine, K with a K, not a C, and. I think continued access to humanitarian aid within Poland is really, really important, particularly in the cities and towns on the Ukrainian border towards the south of Poland. Really important to us. So if any of your humanitarian aid agencies that aren't going in anymore want to reach out to me for us to take their aid forward and into the red zones, we would be delighted to do so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us this morning and for providing this very important insight as to what's going on the front lines.
Thank you, Sally. It's been a pleasure.
Much appreciated. Tenby Powell was my guest this morning. Thank you for watching World Talks, and please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.